about something that is light depth. And I think most of you don't realize the depth that it has. That's why I've asked an expert to come help explain it to us. And really give you, I think this, what I like about this is it gives you permission to do something that you love and then takes it in a direction to show, it's not just a waste of time or something like that. It can, if you will let it, have some meaning. And that is the idea of what we tend to call a hobby, dismissively. Maybe there's something more to it than that. And so today's guest has a new book out just like today, if this airs on the day it's supposed to air, if I've got this right. It is a book called That Sounds Fun. And when I see the title of the book, I tend to pronounce it that way. That sounds fun. Because that's just the way it goes. So
You're doing it right.
the author is Annie F. Downs, and she is with me right now to explain why there may be something more to hobbies than just fun. Annie, good to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Randy. I love getting to talk about this. And so even before we started, you said, I'm doing my hobby this weekend, and that makes me so happy.
Well, and I'm suspecting this is where you're going with some of this at least. And that is, years ago when, pick a major in college, right? I thought about being a music major.
Oh, wow.
Because I love music and I played the keys, I played the guitar, and I thought, would that be great? And thankfully the Lord saved me from that, because now you're in Nashville, okay? I've been in Nashville a lot. There are so many people that are way better than me at music.
Sure.
And frankly, a lot of them struggle to make a living. So God took me in a direction in television and production and writing that I was able to provide for my 4 children and my wife. So God had better plans. But the love for music never went away. And now, like you referred to, I'm playing in church. I'm volunteering at church, doing my hobby, but taking it to another level. Is that a little bit of where you're going with this?
Yes, what you just described, the whole journey of what you just said about how you have experienced making music in your life is exactly what we need to be thinking about. It's exactly right. But you have done, when you decided not to become a pro, you didn't decide, so I can't do it at all. That's what kind of keeps happening to us, is we decide, well, if I can't work in a fancy restaurant, I won't cook at all, or I won't try new recipes at all. Or if I can't be a professional guitar player, I'm not going to play. And the reality is, there's something in you. There's something in me that when I do the hobbies that I love, when I make space for fun in my life, something grows, something important happens in us when we are doing things that we aren't professional at, and doing things that where we're still an amateur, where we're still new even sometimes. But man, that space just gives God, I genuinely think it gives God an opportunity to tell us some things about ourselves that we didn't already know.
That's interesting. You're suggesting that it's okay to be an amateur in some ways.
Oh, I actually would say to you, there is a lot of joy in being an amateur. I think it is incredibly important to be an amateur. When you are not good at something, when you are new at something, you learn so much about yourself. But here's the other thing, Randy, is we've got to, I don't know when it was that suddenly we had to be a professional at everything. But there was some point in modern history where we said, you aren't allowed to make mistakes. You aren't allowed to try something new, whether it's a conversation about racial justice or whether it is a recipe. We've got to let each other learn and grow and change. Stop expecting everyone else to be a professional at the things they are learning, right? I mean, we should be gaining wisdom. The more you read books, the more you should know. The more you're in the kitchen, the more you should learn. The more you play guitar, the better you should get. But gracious, if we didn't let you get on stage at church until you passed some sort of professional quiz, all of our churches would miss out. We would miss out on people doing the thing that they love and serving God in that way. So I am very pro amateur. Let's let each other not be professional at everything that we do.
Yeah, it might improve some of the music in some of the churches if we did that. But
But I'm telling telling you, being an amateur is way more fun. It is way more fun to try new things, to do things, to invite our community into us. I mean, it is way more fun to be an amateur than to try to be a professional at everything.
But I think if we take what you're saying and take that as an attitude and give ourselves permission to be an amateur at something and to try new things and to make some mistakes and learn along the way, it gives us a grace for others who are doing the same thing.
Yes. So there are going to be a lot of conversations that people would have about this same topic, but they're going to use different words. They're going to use words like grace and permission and freedom. And I think those words are really good and very, very right. I just kind of try to use and like to use words that my friends and I use anyway. So words like, it's okay to be an amateur.
Yeah.
It's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if you don't know what you're doing. I'm still going to be your friend. Do you know, someone yesterday on my Instagram, I said something that someone didn't like. Shocking. Welcome to 2021. But she said in my comments, I also see that you follow this other person. Do you agree with everything they say? And I wrote back, and I'll tell you what I said. All I said to her was, what does it say about our friendship if I do? Right? Because what is it actually saying to you? Does it mean we won't be in friendship anymore? If I agree with that person, does that mean you and I can't stay friends? Because that's what you're actually saying. You're actually saying, if you agree there, I can't interact with you. And I don't work like that. I think, man, we're all amateurs at this. Nobody's ever done today before, Randy. We're all brand new at today. We've never done today before. And so we've just all got to let each other learn and grow. And what our Christian friends will say back and forth is have grace with each other. But I don't know about, I grew up in the church. I got saved when I was 5 and I meant it, and I'm 40. And so I have been a believer for a long time, and grace has a lot of things attached to it in my memory and the way I grew up. And so when I hear someone say, give each other grace, it attaches all these things about youth group in my head. But when I go like, what if you just let other people learn and we're with them as they learn, because they're letting you learn. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my friends of other races are letting me learn. I'm learning. I don't know everything about how to be a part of seeing racial justice come to pass, but I'm learning. And I don't know how to cook everything in the kitchen, but I'm learning. And my friends who come and eat at my house are letting me learn. It's okay. If something doesn't have enough salt, they're letting me learn. And we just got to let each other learn more.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that because that's twice you've thrown in the racial justice, which I did not expect in this interview at all, and I want to hear about that. But this ties into it, and I think, we tend to, we don't judge ourselves this way. We have this double standard, and it comes naturally. I'm not casting accusations at anybody, but we tend to hold everyone else up to this kind of perfect standard. And
right.
So we can criticize them when they don't meet it.
And that's no fun.
No.
That is not fun.
It's not fun to, and it's especially not fun to be on the receiving end of that.
Right.
But in the exploring a hobby, being an amateur at something and enjoying it and engaging in it and learning from it, there is an inherent journey. There is a process. And there's a sense of not arriving at perfection, but learning and creating and engaging with others through that process. And if we would apply that to life, we'd be happier. We'd get along with people better. And it doesn't say that we excuse all manner of sin, to use the church term. It doesn't mean that, in practical terms, that you let someone be abusive towards you. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about taking an attitude of learning, of striving towards improvement and essentially perfection, even if we never get there. Do you see that sort of attitude towards hobbies as being a healthy attitude we can adopt towards life?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're handling it for me. You're telling our friends what I am here to tell our friends.
Sorry.
Is that's awesome, Randy, because that's the thing is the way we treat our little moments alone end up being kind of how we treat the world. And the way that we handle our hobbies, the way we handle these little parts of our lives, these little 30-minute windows. I tell my friends all the time when I'm like, if you aren't having any fun, I need you to put 30 minutes of fun on your calendar. And if you can just put a 30-minute block of fun on your calendar, whether you go on a walk, whether you sit and sew something, whether you make something, whether you play soccer outside, whether you work on your a cross stitch, whether you're playing guitar, if you will make 30 minutes to have fun, you will start noticing there something bubbles up in you. Maybe some questions, maybe some things going on. And if we would, whatever happens in that time, is going to tell you some things that are going on in the rest of your life. So you're exactly right. And that's why I think it's so important that we don't treat fun like it's the opposite of having a bad time. Like, oh, another friend of mine just said to me when I was talking to him, he said, well, I don't make space for a lot of fun because I really like my job. And I was like, great. I love my job. You and I both like our jobs, but you don't have to have something bad to choose fun. Fun and having a good time goes along with a great life. It's not to balance out a bad life. Fun is a great part of everyone's lives. And I think it connects us back to something really innocent inside of us. Things that when you think back to what you didn't know when you were 4, like the innocence of childhood, fun takes us back there. And when you can connect back with pieces of the way you grew up, you can remember what you've really loved. You can remember the hobbies you've really enjoyed. And there's something about God back then that you'll remember that you can bring into your relationship with him today.
That's good. We're talking to Annie F. Downs. This is her book. That sounds fun. And I do think I want to show people the website too, real quick. AnnieFDowns.com. You can hear podcasts. You can learn to laugh. I do feel that it would be irresponsible to not at least ask about, because let me tell you, when I was in college and you said, let's go have some fun,
Yeah.
that didn't always lead to good things.
Yes.
How do we know the fun that is healthy, that is right in God's eyes,
Yes.
versus the things that really we shouldn't be doing?
That's such a good question, Randy, because that is true. A lot of times we use the word fun to talk about escapism. We use the word fun to get out of our pain. Like, oh, let's just go have some fun. I'm so tired of this, whatever this is. And when that happens, a lot of times we walk towards sin. We walk toward trying to meet a legitimate need illegitimately. And so one of the things I do, a practice I have in my life, is there's not a lot of fun I do alone, because that's when you can drink too much, or that's when you can Google stuff you don't want to, or that's where you can end up with a person you didn't mean to end up with, or even making things that aren't holy and good, right? And so a lot of times when I am practicing a hobby, or when I'm like, let's have some fun, I'm going to invite somebody else in with me. And it is really hard when one of your best friends is sitting there for you to walk as easily toward. Now, depends on who you pick. The one who walks with the wise grows wise, and a companion of fools suffers harm, is what Proverbs tells us, right? So
that's true.
How you picking your friends is going to play out in this. But I'll tell you, with my friends, I'm super lucky. One of my escapism things is eating food to make me feel better. And food isn't really meant to make you feel better. It's meant to be healthy for you. But I wanted a Blizzard a couple of nights ago from our Dairy Queen. And I thought I can either go by myself and it be a secret, or I can call a friend and him with me. And so I called a friend. We rode out there. It's not close to us in town. So we rode out there. We laughed the whole way. We sang songs. We got a Blizzard. We came home. And I took what could have been an isolating, secretive escapism experience, and I made it a fun community experience. I did the exact same thing. I just did it in a way that wasn't trying to hide. And I did it in a way that made memories with someone else. And I think that changes how you define your fun.
That's interesting, yeah. And if they were running a buy one get one, you wouldn't eat both of them. You
You'd like to think I wouldn't, but
'cause
who can know?
I know, right? Well, not with someone else there with you. That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But again, the food is not the problem. I'm not saying you can't go to Dairy Queen. I'm not saying you can't eat, drink, and be merry. I'm saying when you do that to escape from your pain versus do it in community to invite other people to a good time, those are two different things.
Yeah, you can take something that is neutral in a sense and take it one of two directions. I hear you. Because did you grow up I know you're in Tennessee now. Did you grow up in the South?
Yes, I grew up in Georgia.
You grew up okay, so you know that, hey, that sounds fun is often followed by something really hard.
Yeah, something's going to go sideways if you're not careful after that. You're exactly right. I'm redeeming the phrase from my Southern friends as well.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Fun has landed me in the hospital recently in adult years.
Oh, gosh.
We got to be careful. Okay.
That's right.
I totally had a great question queued up, and I just distracted me. Why? Why did you even? What caused you to say we need a book on hobbies and fun?
Yeah. So my podcast is called That Sounds Fun. Oh. And the last question I ask and the reason I started it is someone said, will you interview me and share the interview? And I said, I don't know how to do that. And they said, have you thought about starting a podcast? And hand to heaven, Randy, I said, that sounds fun. And so then I went and Googled it and I was like, okay, nobody started that yet. So here we go. And then as I started doing interviews, we're a couple 100 episodes in, 7 years the show's been going. And at the end of every show, I say to people, okay, because the show's called That Sounds Fun, tell me what you do for fun. And so I get a variety of answers. And then what started happening is at airports, if I go speak at conferences, at restaurants, even at church here in Nashville, people come up to me, Randy, and before they even say their name, they'll say, hey, Annie, I want to tell you what I do for fun. And I'm like, who are you? And slow down. But it's like I suddenly became the judge and the coach of fun. And I didn't mean to. I thought I'm being as honest as I can be with you, buddy. I thought everyone thought about fun as much as I did. I thought we were all thinking about fun like this and just like being a grown-up about it. I didn't realize that there is something to this thing that I think about all the time. And when I invite other people into it, when we were inviting our listeners into it, suddenly they wanted to talk about their thing. They wanted to talk about their hobby. They wanted to talk about how much they love water parks or skateboarding or hanging out with their grandparents. They just wanted to tell me. And I thought, there's something to this. There is something we miss in our lives that we don't know how to find, but everyone's looking. Everyone's looking.
Do you think that the church has sort of shamed the idea of fun to the point where we don't want to make it a communal thing and we just want to do it in secret?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think what's happened, and I don't know if it's the church or if it's just being humans, but when you grow up, they tell you, I mean, it's the Peter Pan thing, right? Peter Pan gets to have fun and Wendy doesn't. And so maybe there's some of that in the church, but I think the bigger story is that adults are told that fun was a thing that happened before life got hard. And I would venture to say fun is a part of a hard life that makes a hard life better. And we all, I mean, what's the Frederick Buechner quote that this is the world, it is beautiful and hard, and it's beautiful and challenging. That kind of, I'm butchering that quote, but it's that. I mean, life is going to be hard. Jesus promised it. And yet we act like kids are the only ones who are allowed to run around outside, or kids are the only one who are allowed to finger paint, or kids are the only one who are allowed to throw a bunch of recipes together, a bunch of ingredients together in the kitchen and see what happens. And I'm gonna blow the trumpet that grown-ups need to release themselves from the pressure of every day and put some fun on your calendar. And if God doesn't meet you there, then I've missed this whole thing. But I'm telling you, God meets me and my friends when we make space for hobbies and fun in ways that I did not believe he would do.
And that's interesting. And since this is primarily a Christian audience that watches this particular program, I'm curious that when you started going down this track of something you believed inside, did you run across scriptures, Bible stories, things that maybe you hadn't seen in scripture before that kind of validated what you were feeling?
Yeah, in 2020, one of the things my pastor here in Nashville at Crosspoint Church, his name's Kevin Queen. Pastor Kevin always says, if you're going to read the Bible every day, you got to have a place and a plan. And so I always try to have a plan. And so what I did in 2020 is I read the Gospels every month. I looped through all four of them 12 times in 2020. It's a little plan. It's like 3 chapters a day. And I will tell you over and over, I saw Jesus making space in his day. Now, it doesn't say that he and his boys played baseball or that they, went out and cross stitched or anything like that. But that's because no one with my personality wrote one of the Gospels. If I was there, I'd have told you all the fun that we were having. But I did see over and over again that Jesus makes space for things that he cares about, even if it doesn't move forward, because what everyone else thought was moving the mission forward was different than what Jesus saw, right? Jesus is always wanting to be with kids. They invited him. The reason he changed water into wine is that bride and groom wanted Jesus and his friends at their wedding. He must have been fun to be around, right? And so that there is a paradigm shift that Jesus is doing all the time. You know it because you know the Gospels too. That all the time he's saying what you think is important in the kingdom of God, what you're missing the most important thing. And over I saw, man, he's making space for kids. He's making space to have conversations. While they're walking and talking, he's explaining things. Jesus made space. And that's all a hobby is, right? It's just putting your phone down, stopping work, and making space to do something that engages your mind, engages your heart, engages your history, and allows you to connect in a new way.
Yeah, and I think when it is done in the way that you're describing, it does move God's plan forward, and it's because of relationship. I think we undervalue sometimes relationship building, and relationship building doesn't mean that I knock on my neighbor's door necessarily. Now, if God tells you to, go do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I just knock on my neighbor's door that I've seen twice, pulling out of my driveway.
Ever.
Hey, neighbor.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to lay a 4-point plan of the gospel on him, and now I've done my duty. That's, again, if God tells you to do that, you go do that. But I think more often it's about, I know with my neighbors, we'll be like working in the yard, and so we end up talking about, hey, what'd you do to,
Yep.
how'd you trim that high up in the tree,
Yes.
and you actually start building relationship more that way.
Yes.
And once you have the relationship, then someone's way more open to the gospel than just like, oh my gosh, my neighbor wants to talk to me today. What's going on?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. 100%. Oh my gosh, you're exactly right. Because literally what you're doing out in the yard, now it may need to get done, but some would call that a hobby. That you and your neighbor share the same hobby. So I picked up cross stitching again, like all our grandmothers did, because I just wanted to do something while I was watching TV that wasn't like scrolling on my phone while watching TV. Scrolling is not a hobby. I'm sorry to tell everyone that, but scrolling is not a
Well,
hobby.
neither's watching TV, but if we're fair.
Right. So I was at the local craft store and I was getting the new colors, and there was another girl in the same section as me. We could not have been more opposite. If you imagined an exact opposite of me, that was her. And so we had nothing in common, except we both needed the same yellow. And we both need the same yellow, and we were talking, and so we showed each other what we were making. And there is something about that relationship building that is connecting. And if we've learned anything in 2020, being stuck in our homes, our neighbors are not there on accident. We live next to people on purpose, and we've all been there. Some of my neighbors and I have started trading puzzles because we all have puzzles. And so we have a spreadsheet and we trade puzzles. But it also gives me this chance to, hey, by the way, I saw your dog got a new collar. Congratulations. Hey, I saw you getting out of your car the other day. You had so much in your arms. What's going on? Just those little things, trimming the hedges, wondering how they put up their Christmas lights, trading out puzzles, talking to the person who shares your hobby at the local craft store. That is all gospel moving forward, even if you aren't quite using the word yet.
Right. Okay. So, as the local fun expert and the author,
Yes.
I'll show you a book again. It's called That Sounds Fun. How do we find uh, a hobby that is going to be beneficial, that is something that we can use to build relationships and really build the kingdom. Well, how do you find a
Okay,
good
so
hobby?
I have two questions. I have a little tiny quiz. The question number one is, when you were in third grade and you came home from school, what did you do? What did you do in the afternoon? Did you draw? Did you read? Did you watch TV? Did you make a snack? Because probably whatever you were doing that afternoon, those afternoons can tell you some things that you really love. And there's just a return to some of that we need to go back to. You don't need to feel silly about it. There's nothing weird about what you love to do. I mean, one of my favorite things is a friend of mine loved playing with his toy cars. And now he's kind of given himself permission to get into building trains and Legos. And it's like, yes, yes, give yourself permission to do the things you've always loved. So what'd you do when you got home in the afternoon in third grade? And if you had no responsibility, if you were given a free day, if there was a way that God or a president or your governor or someone could hand you a pass and say, you've got a free day, money's not an issue, what do you want to do? Everything you list that day, we need to start looking into those things deeper and figuring out if it's going to Disney World, let's talk about why. Let's talk about if that's a real possibility, but let's talk deeper. What is it about Disney World? Is it the cartoons you used to watch when you were little because of how you connected with them, or is it the adrenaline? And so if you keep that's the thing about fun, Randy, is we can dig it. Once we figure out the surface, what sounds fun to you, we can dig about 3 layers deep and learn a lot about who we are and what brings us joy. And we've got to go back to that stuff. Now more than ever, we need to find fun in our everyday.
And what's interesting, I love how you're describing this, because literally this weekend, Super Bowl weekend,
Yes.
and I enjoy somewhat watching football. I enjoy playing fantasy football. So 4th out of 14 teams, not bad, but hey.
Well
I
done,
won't
yeah.
brag too- I just got lucky. But I tell you what, I did start several years ago, and it's happening this weekend. Is I go snow skiing because I love snow skiing,
Yeah.
and I dedicated Super Bowl weekend to college friends. I went to Oral Roberts University, so these are Christian guys, and we have done this. I don't even know how many years, but so several of us that I went to college with literally 30 years ago, are going snow skiing. Now, that can go one of two ways. It can be like those terrible rated R movies where the guys go out for a weekend and live like they shouldn't. Or it can go the way that ours have gone, which is a time where we get to ski. We watch a little football on Sunday, and we get to talk as men. And I can't tell you the encouragement, the spiritual strengthening. For some, it's just, man, what a great recharge. For others, it's, man, my marriage is rough right now. I don't know if it's going to make it. And it's, let's talk, let's pray, let's encourage. It has actually turned into, my fun has turned into one of the best ministry components of my life. And it's on a very, very small scale.
Yes.
It's very, very small, very intimate. And I think I totally see what you're saying, that God can use. And you know what? I love the weekend. So yeah, it is
Yes.
fun. So
And you know what? I would bet that a lot of those conversations, they don't happen when you go, okay, gentlemen, at 2:00, we're all going to sit around a table.
absolutely.
No, it is on the ski
On the
list,
left,
right?
yeah, on the left, yeah.
And it's when you're sitting around watching football where a commercial comes on and you say to the guy, do you know what? I've been using that stuff because I think something's wrong with my stomach. And then all of a sudden, you're talking about your physical health. I mean, fun is a gateway to who we really want to be and who we want to be around. And so everything you're describing, 2 thumbs up from this fun expert.
Thank you. I'm glad. And I described them to try to give people an illustration of how these things
Yeah.
can go. Because you're really on something. All right, I'm going to give you the last word here. I'm going to show people real quick, though, the website. This is Annie F. Downs. Is there a musician, Annie Downs, that doesn't have the F?
A quilter.
No.
Can you believe this? Yes, she makes the most beautiful quilting patterns. She's Australian, and she is very famous down under. And so we use the F all the time to keep me separate from a quilt maker.
Which is a great hobby, by the way.
Right. She's amazing.
All right. So AnnieFDowns.com. You can check that out. And her latest book, of many books, she's written a lot of best-selling books. So she's no lightweight. This is not just fun for her. This is legit.
Right.
It's called That Sounds Fun, and it is available. All right, Annie, I appreciate your time, and I invite you just to wrap us up. If there's one thing that people need to take away from today's conversation, it's not that I'm going to be watching football up in the mountains this weekend. It's not that fun is fun. What is that thing they need to take away?
Yeah, I'd say today, what I would encourage you to do is check back in with the history of who you are. Go back to when you were little, go back to when you were even a teenager, and just go back and ask yourself what sounds fun to you. It is amazing if you will just sit, and even if you ask yourself today, if you'll just sit and say, what sounds fun to me? You're going to learn a lot about yourself, and it's going to start a journey that I think you've been wanting to go on.
That's good. That's good. I love it, and I appreciate everything you're sharing. Appreciate you guys watching. And you know what sounds fun right now? Hit and share right there. Share this interview, and if you haven't subscribed or followed, do that, and we will see you next time here on Live Today Live.